welcome to another episode of This Month in Master Duel. My name is Ed Templar, and as always, I'm delighted to be joined by Ibris. Ibris, how are you?
Very well, Ed, thank you. Yeah, really happy to be joined by you again after our brief time apart for the last month.
I was notably absent last time, but we had someone step in to fill in.
He did a phenomenal job. Maybe a bit more on that later. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, you've segued beautifully, introducing our two guests who are joining us in the studio. We have said replacement of me, Sebastian Lemke and Joshua Schmidt. And it's wonderful to have both of you guys here in the studio with us. Gentlemen, how are you?
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Excellent.
Phenomenal. Yeah, great times for Master Duel and great time for another episode of This Month of Master Duel, huh?
That's exactly what we want to hear. Now, for those of you who are tuning into the show for the first time, the way this show works is we're basically here to talk about stuff that's just happened in Master Duel and what's coming up this month in Master Duel. Hence the name. So in today's show, we always start with our 60-second challenge, where I challenge Ibris to divide everything that's just happened in 60 seconds. We play a little cheeky game called Guess the Percentage, which is where we guess the usage percentages of some of the important cards in the game right now. We'll talk about some of our October packs, and then we're going to have some excellent replays of some duels in the ranked mode of Master Duel. It's going to be an action-packed show, Ibris.
Yeah, definitely will be. And really, again, delighted to be joined by such powerhouse guests.
Powerhouse guests.
Honestly, great players, great game knowledge, and really can't wait to share all of that with you. In addition to all of that information that Ed just mentioned.
Yes, I do mention a lot of that at the top. I front load this show with a lot of info, but you're about to have to info dump for us, Ibris, because it's time for your 60-second challenge. Are you ready?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, let's see how you do. Your time begins. I'm going to pretend to look at my watch now.
Thank you. What? I wasted some seconds.
You did, yes.
So
it's
polite.
all right.
Anyway, what I want to talk about is the sheer amount of events that we saw in September. So the World Championship, of course, taking place at the start of that. I know at least one of our guests, Joshua Schmidt, did very well there. Also, in addition to that, we had the Dualist Cup that a lot of players across the world participated in. That was really, really good. Yeah, a lot of variety of decks actually doing well there. We had the recent additions of the Called by the Grave icon and deluxe icon frame. We had the Raikou Lightsworn Hunter actually come as the mate in the Dual Pass refresh as well. The mobile weapons on the field of battle solo mode gate. And of course, all of the packs that came out throughout September as well. That's not off-putting at all.
Time is up. That was actually generally most, if not all, of what we had to discuss. Ibris.
I think I missed a Forbidden Limited list, but it's okay.
Hey, we're about to go into some very key detail on that, but let's briefly touch on some of the things you did just mention. Obviously, the Ghost Bell set, that's a very important release at the moment. It's a good staple card for some people.
Yeah, Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, of course, kind of fulfilling similar role to the likes of the Ash Blossom Joy Spring, where it's disruption from the hand when you need it, and having that readily available. Similar to the set with the Ash Blossom, the Solemn Judgment, the Effect Veiler, there's a lot going for it.
Absolutely, and one that I'm sure people will certainly be getting their hands on. And also, you mentioned the Called by the Grave goodies as well.
Yeah, the icon and the icon frame both looking fantastic.
They certainly are.
I am still using the Super Polymerization, by the way.
Are you?
Yeah.
See, I'm still using things like Soul Eating Overraptor, and then whatever I can unlock near the end of a battle pass, just so I can feel like I've really earned that, that little icon. But you did also mention the Forbidden and Limited list, Ibris, and that's something that we're going to go into because we have our two Master Duel representatives here in the studio, so we can actually talk about the effect that the Forbidden and Limited list has on the game right now. So let's kick it off. First thing I'm going to mention is that Primeval Planet PRhino is forbidden. That is now down to 0.
Yeah, and I know that Tillaments has been a dominant threat across the past year or two. Just really, really strong in terms of what it brings to the table for consistency. Playing with the graveyard, really, really effective at that. And PRhino just being able to essentially get you 3 more cards off of a single card play is, yeah, really, really impactful. And Josh, I know you had a lot to say about it.
It's a very necessary hit, I feel like, considering how long Tillaments has been at the top of the game in Master Duel. It's not only been in this year's World Championship winning lineup, we also had it last year. So like that just goes to show how powerful of a deck it really was, and honestly probably still is because the cool thing about this PRhino hit is that it weakens the deck significantly, but it does not make it unplayable by any means. I think, like, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to climb all the way to the top of like the ranked ladder with it, but you can definitely still very much play the deck. Like, it's still functional.
Unfortunately, I guess we won't see the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation anymore, though, which was, you know, one of the good old Crystal Beast cards that I like to enjoy. And, you know, I did kind of paraphrase something you told me when I said that PRhino gives you access to up to 3 further cards. Can you elaborate on that for us a little bit?
So I guess what you mean is that once you activate PRhino, first of all, it searches you any tier limit monster. So that's usually going to be, if you're using it at the start of the game, it's going to find you a Rhino Heart, which is going to transition into the Kick Kalos, which then searches another tier limit card. And from that point on, it's all up to, you know, the luck of what you send off the top of your deck, because once you have summoned that Kick Kalos and it resolves, you'll send up to 10 random cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard. So this could be generating 3 cards, it could be generating 5, it could be generating 7, which I feel like is the main fun for people that play tier limit, is like what happens when you mill those cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard.
Basti, have you got anything to add about PRhino?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that some people even forget is that it's a field spell, so it will stick to the field, and therefore, even against, for example, decks that use trap cards or really sticky monsters like, for example, Apache Cephalosaurus, which we're probably going to talk about later on as well, you have the option to just, because of the fact that you can also, when you put tier limits back to the deck, destroy a card on the field, you can just remove those threats so easily. So it was way easier for the deck to play through those continuous trap cards or even those monsters, and therefore I think getting rid of that makes those matchups a lot tougher in general, I would say.
Now, some of the other things that are kind of sitting at the top of the format right now are things like Ubel and also the Snake Eyes Fire Kings. And we've seen that Snake Eyes Poplar has gone down to 1. So what do we think about that as a change?
I like it a lot. Yeah,
okay.
I like it a lot because it was definitely played at least with 2 copies in most of the pure Snake Eye decks, but also in the very prominent Snake Eye Fire King deck. And therefore, it's good to see that it's going down to 1, because drawing this card now could become a little awkward for the deck, because you usually want to summon it out, and it only gets summoned out as an extra monster to the field when it is added to the hand, for example, through Snake Eye Ash or Bonfire, and therefore that is not going to be the case anymore when you draw it already, and therefore it makes things definitely harder for the deck. The consistency is going to go down, so it will be interesting to see how the deck can actually cover that, to be honest.
Do you think, similar to what you were saying about tier limits, how PRhino does affect it but doesn't completely count it out, do you think that having Poplar down to 1 counts it out, or is it still pretty usable?
It will remain usable, but either the pure Snake Eye deck or the Snake Eye Fire King or even other Snake Eye hybrids will still be functional with 1 Poplar. The thing you have to realize about putting Poplar to 1 is that if you now draw it, you won't have it in the deck for all the cards that search it, which lets you not use that effect anymore for when it's added to the hand, you get to special summon it. But the thing about that is that Poplar is still a card that has 3 different effects, and if you draw it, the only thing you're missing out on is 1 of them, and the other 2 are still pretty good. So I do think the card was being played at 2 copies for good reason, so the decks will get weaker, but it is still a very powerful card, and you still have access to 1 copy, so I still think they are still going to be fine.
And Ed mentioned not only the pure Snake Eye, but the Fire King Snake Eye as well. The High Avatar Kieran also getting restricted here. Any implications from your side as to how that might affect the Fire King Snake Eye build in particular?
It's rather similar to what I said about Poplar, I'd say. Like, for both of those cards, it's actually funny because there's been considerations whenever you're building a Snake Eye Fire King deck of whether you actually even play 2 or 3 Kirans, and the same was actually true for Poplar. 1 or 2 Poplars was a question to be asked, which just goes to show that it was possible to play the deck with 1 Poplar, 2 Kirin beforehand. Like, that was something that people would do just to lower the card count of their deck, like get it to 40 cards or fit other cards that they wanted to play. A lot of people did play 3 Kirins though, for good reason, because obviously if you open it, it lets you play through cards like Infinite Impermanence or Effect Veiler to try to negate your monsters, and just like you'd respond to it by destroying your fire monster, therefore it can't be negated. So it was a very good card, especially also in longer, like, grindy games, but it's definitely playable with 2 copies.
Now, I mentioned Ubel earlier. I'm going to mention Ubel again. Ubel. We have lost
Okay.
Phantom of Ubel, well, one copy of Phantom Ubel, so we're down to 2. Dark Beckoning Beast is at 2, and Opening of the Spirit Gates is at 2. So these are all affecting the Ubel deck to an extent. Basti, what are your thoughts on those hits?
Yeah, so overall, pretty much all of these are consistency hits, especially the Dark Beckoning Beast and also the Opening to the Spirit Gates. So you will just open these cards less often, meaning you will be less often able to perform the optimal combo of the deck, of course. And on the other hand, Phantom of Ubel is a card that's going to hinder the grind game a little bit, because usually you could quite easily just go through one Phantom of Ubel on the first turn, then the second one even maybe for extension of your combo, because you could just summon it out as often as possible, because there is no restriction on that. And then you would be able to go for the third one on the follow-up turn, for example. But that's now not possible anymore. You may have to consider maybe recycling Phantom of Ubel through Nightmare Throne and stuff like that, or maybe through Untrained Soul of Rage. Therefore, I think just the longer games are going to become a little more interesting now for the Ubel deck, and that's going to be interesting to see how well they can go in those longer games. I think, though, the first turn, as long as they are able to pull off the combo, is probably going to be very similar from what we've seen so far.
Ibris, any input on that from you at all?
No, I think that is, yeah, pretty much it, with the Ubel deck also suffering from the Nightmare Corrupted Ibli being moved to Forbidden as well. Will still remain a dominant threat, and of course, Josh, I think when we discussed the limitations on the Ubel deck, this does kind of affect the long games, but oftentimes Ubel decks don't need all that much time to actually close it out.
Yeah, Lampy summed it up quite well. The first turn of the deck is still exceptionally strong, and usually you would go through 2 Phantoms of Ubel maximum on the first turn. Right? I feel like people are going to consider just going for combos now that only need 1, just so you do keep that second one for later turns. But for the most part, second, third turn of the game is where you're going to feel this change coming in the most.
Now, there's a couple more cards I want to quickly mention before we end this segment. So one of them is Fossil Dino Pachycephalo, which is obviously going to affect some of the disruptive decks.
Yep. Of course, this is a really iconic card for just denying your opponent the ability to special summon, which, as it turns out, a lot of decks do like doing.
They do.
Yeah, really having that go to 1 from 3 will affect the consistency of a lot of these types of decks. Not much else to say about that from my side, but I know, Josh, you're a big fan of playing the runic variants of those denial type strategies. Could you elaborate?
No, actually not those. I'm a big fan of the Pachycephalo limit. We were looking at this guy over here. He's a fan of those strategies.
Yeah, I had a special place in my heart for Pachi, so there's only 1 left now. I'm sure we will be able to replace it, though. I think we can find some supplements, some substitution for it. Yeah.
Perhaps a runic engine.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Don't give him ideas like that.
The last 2 cards I want to talk about, Change of Heart and Chaos Space, both up to 3.
So Chaos Space in particular, I think, would be really good for Josh to just talk about a bit, just because it does have a direct tie to the Dragon Link deck that you did pilot last year at WCS.
I'm a huge fan of Chaos Space at 3, just because, yeah, the Dragon Link deck does have a special place in my heart, and it's definitely going to make use of that card. So I like that a lot. It's going to remain to be seen whether it's enough to push the deck back into like the top tier levels of competitive play, but it is definitely a very welcome change to the deck.
And Chaos Space, special place in Josh's heart, but Change of Heart, Lampy.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite deck of all time is Sky Strikers, and it's a pretty powerful spell card, especially going second when your opponent already has monsters on the field. Therefore, getting more Change of Heart is definitely a welcome change for me, and I will include it into my Striker deck for sure. I think with Chaos Space specifically, it's going to be interesting to see how well Telements actually can recover from this list, because Dragon Link is really good against Telements, so the factor how much Telements is there is going to probably also tell us how much Dragon Link we're going to see, to be honest.
Josh got to speak about Dragon Link. I brought up Runic. Lampy spoke about Sky Striker. You're living life.
Yeah.
Now, watch this, Ibris. I'm going to segue from Change of Heart to a change of segment.
Thank you.
There we go. I'm a genius. We move on to our September packs, where we get to talk about some of the stuff that we've seen released throughout September. So the first one to talk about is Advance of Great Forces, Ibris.
Yeah, Ancient Gear Dark Golem, as it turns out, can do some pretty good damage. The Ancient Gear strategy, of course, being one of the kind of legacy strategies that did get a lot of new support, and it is very much a battle phase focused deck. similar to something else that we're going to be speaking about in a little bit, just to hint about
little bit of a
what might
tease.
be behind us. In addition to that, of course, having the Ragnarika stuff just come in to further reinforce the plant-based strategies that are oh so popular in our European region tournaments.
Absolutely.
Yeah, really, really good pack. And I think actually, Josh, I saw you play some Telements with the Light Swan cards that came out alongside it.
Oh yeah, I do love the Light Sworn cards. Yeah, they're like right down my alley in terms of like how fun the deck is to play. I obviously tried to pair it up with Runics, which I'm gonna ask you again to give me that second fountain to pair that with, because that would really help that sort of strategy. But no, the Light Sworn cards are really fun.
What is it that you find so fun about them?
It's just a kind of similar thing to the tier elements, where you just send random cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard, and just like every game is different, and you're trying to see what you can get, what kind of advantage you can find by just sending random cards from your deck to the graveyard. And it's also a very different challenge in deck building, because you're no longer just building your deck for drawing certain cards. You also have to consider like, how good is this card when I draw it? How good is this card when I send it from the top of my deck to the graveyard? It really is like a fun challenge to approach a deck like that.
Also
That does
just
sound
a
like fun
throwback,
chess.
isn't it?
It
Like
is.
True,
just,
true.
Yeah.
Good old Wolf. We played it back in the day. We're playing it now in Master
We got a
Duel.
Raiko mate on the dual pass.
Absolutely.
It is all coming back. Next one, Ibris, we have Aim for the Stars.
Yeah, Aim for the Stars was like a best of very strong monsters that can fit into a variety of decks, or extra decks, as it were. And seeing that just make these powerful monsters more readily accessible was really very welcome. Much like the adventure of
Mystical Etchings.
Indeed, which was the runic pack that I'm sure Josh would love to speak about again.
Welcome to the TED Talk. Today I'll be discussing Runic.
No, you guys are just making me open packs to try and pull for Royal Runic cards is the thing. Because I already have the Runic cards, but now you're just presenting me an option to try and pull for them as a Royal Rare. So I'm just like out here spending all my gems on it. So I don't know how much I actually like it in that regard. But no,
You put yourself into that spot.
That's
though.
true, yeah. That's entirely self-inflicted.
to be fair, that's on me. Yeah, no, it's cool.
And lastly, we have New World replete with joy.
Yep, so Monadium. Would you like to tell us a bit about that, Lampy?
I mean, Quantal would probably be a better person to speak
True.
about that, because he's such a big fan of the deck. But yeah, super big combo deck was good. I mean, it's always great to have those packs to just have everything together. So when you always wanted to build a deck and then you get that chance with that special pack where you can just open that pack to get the entire deck all together pretty much, makes it easier, and also makes it more efficient because you have to spend less gems on it altogether. So I really like that, yeah.
Now, the next thing we're going to be discussing, which I know, Basti, you and I spent a bit of time at YCS Lille over the last weekends, and I saw you and other commentators all grinding on Dualist Cup on Master Duel. Now, we're very aware the format is very strong with things like Ubel, Snake Eyes Fire Kings. I mean, Josh, you've even said that Sprite has been making its way into that. Talk to us, guys, a little bit about the format and things that we're seeing right now in things like the Dualist Cup.
Yeah, so the Dualist Cup basically happened before the implementation of those Forbidden Limited List changes. So like the Snake Eye cards and the Ubel cards were basically still, well, Snake Eye was not at full power anymore, but like at the level we knew it from the World Championships. So it was no surprise that those two decks were among the most represented at the like top finishers. The Sprite decks were honestly a little bit surprising. I don't know exactly how many ended up making it into like the top 100, but I definitely saw a couple of lists like here and there of people that were like, yeah, I made like top 25 with like an adventurer Sprite list or something, which is always one of the really cool things about the Dualist Cup, because like so many different people play it and just decide to like dedicate their time to one of their favorite decks, and some of them end up doing really well with it, which is something you wouldn't expect, but it's cool to see.
I think I saw an Infernoble Knight Mikanko.
Ooh.
That was
God, that is a rogue choice.
somebody loves equip spells apparently, but
I didn't know you were playing the Dualist Cup. That's cool.
Well, Basti, you were very much piloting quite a disruptive deck. Did you go up against anything quite unexpected in your time at those
Oh,
ranks?
absolutely. Like the sheer amount of games that you're playing over that time, you're going to face so many different decks. So absolutely, I played versus some absurd creations there, and then you got to witness what they were doing and like big combos. I think I played against Infernoble actually at least once.
Nice.
And they did put me to the test for sure, and I think they actually ended up defeating me. But yeah, I mean, the big takeaway probably is that one person that already went to the World Championship twice now, Tazuku, was first place on that Dualist Cup, and he's going to be qualified for the World Championship once more.
Yeah, and Tusk playing with the Nightmare Corruptor Ibli variant of the Ubel deck was really, really impressive again. And with the restrictions now being applied to the Ubel deck, it is kind of fitting to have that full power finish at the top of the Duelist Cup standings now that we move into a new standard environment with new monsters, new cards, new decks.
Indeed, which we'll be coming on to very, very soon. But before that, we get to play one of my favourite games that we get to do here at this month in Master Duel Ibris. And what would that be?
That would be guess the percentage.
Yes, it would. Guess the percentage. So I get to ask Ibris and my two guests here exactly what the percentage usage is of some of these top cards in the game. So I'm going to slyly move over to my card that has this written on it, because that's not the right card. Yes, it is. Don't worry. I've got all of them written here. So we have 5 different cards for you guys. And I'm going to say, just to help you guys, with the first 4, don't aim too high. Just keep them to low percentages, but ideally I'd like you guys to try and get as close to the decimal point percentage. Right. So if it's 20.3, try and get as close to that as you can.
Well, sure.
Are we ready?
Ready.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to have my buzzer ready as well. Okay, our first card. Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. Now, Ibris, I'm going to let you think about this. I'm going to start down the other end with Basti right now.
So extra deck card definitely has some usage, but not in every deck. Also, the extra decks at the moment are pretty tight, I would say, especially Ubel and so on. So I'll go below 10, I believe. I will go 9.6%.
I like hearing people's brains work with coming up with a decimal percentage. You're like, I'm just going to say 9.6. Could be anything. Okay, not a bad guess. Josh?
Yeah, I was thinking some of the same things. However, people really do like that card for that jump scare moment when it just happens out of nowhere. I feel like people really love that. So I'm going to go a little bit higher, although not too high. So I'm going to say arbitrary decimal point again, 13.4.
13.4. Okay, lastly, Ibris?
I definitely do agree with the sense that this is competing for space in a lot of the smaller extra decks. In addition to that, when you consider that you need to run this card, typically it's almost always seen with the IP Masquerena, so that is basically 2 slots of the extra deck now. I think that is still strong, and it does have a way to out fields that would otherwise be really difficult to deal with. But I don't think a lot of decks have the luxury of summoning it all that often, and therefore I guess I think I'd be around the 15% mark. Do you need a decimal, or
would you like to put on an arbitrary decimal?
14.7%.
Okay, I could tell you that the closest was Ibris.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
But
it's higher.
It's actually not that close. It's just you were closest. The answer is 19%.
Ooh,
so there was
that's
no
a lot.
arbitrary decimal point in that one. It
This
was
is
just
19.0.
19.0.
There is, yeah.
So that's our first card. Now the second one, this is one that we've already discussed. Spirit of Ubel.
Okay.
That's a tough one.
So I'll go first.
Okay.
This is, of course, like a very, very key part of the Ubel combo, but it's only seen in Ubel. And given that something as generic as the Underworld Goddess of the Closed World was as far down as 19%, I think this is entirely contingent on how much of the current competitive format you would attribute to Ubel decks. So maybe if 1 in every 3 decks I'm facing in ranked duel is Ubel, that would put it at 33. I think we could go slightly higher and say maybe 37%.
37%.
Yeah.
That's a very bold
That's a lot,
choice.
yeah.
But let's try. Okay, Josh?
All right, I need a clarification. Is this across all of Master Duel?
Yes.
All right. I don't think across all of Master Duel you will have
I
this
think
many
that's
people
a high guess, mate.
playing Ubel.
I like Ubel. My icon is super polymerization. Come on.
True.
So what's going through my head is like you're basically playing this card in every single Ubel deck out there, and you also have the option. I've seen some decks play just a small package of Nightmare Throne, 1 Spirit, 1 Ubel, which enables you to go like Nightmare Throne, destroy the Ubel, summon the Spirit, and make a Phantom just to have like the the free Phantom, quote unquote. But I don't think many people are doing that at the moment. But Ubel is a strong deck, so I'm gonna go lower than 37.
Shocker.
I'll just hit you with a 21.2.
Okay, 21.2, and yours was 37 or 30.7.
37.
37. Okay, sorry.
37.4, I think.
He gave you an out,
37.4
he gave you an out to go
something.
back a little bit.
Okay,
I've
and lastly,
committed.
Basti, what's your estimate?
It's tough. I like your guess. I think I'm going to be around that ballpark.
You don't like
and I
mine?
would go, I'm skeptical towards yours, I gotta say.
I like yours.
Thank you.
For our chances in this game, I like it as well. I think I will up you a little bit and I'll just go 22.3%.
Okay, I like the choices here, but actually 15.8. So Josh was
Josh
closest,
wins it.
but Ibriz.
Apparently there are half
way
as
too
many
high.
Ubel players out there as I thought.
No, the maths was right, but then I think you had to divide it a further.
The logic was good.
It was sound logic. I'm not ever going to dispute that, but I'm afraid.
More like 1 in every 8 players that I'm playing against is playing Ubel.
Okay, well let's go for a card that's a bit more ubiquitous. Baron de Fleur.
Oh,
Now,
Oh, we have Baron de Fleur just behind Lampy over there
we
as well.
certainly do. So this is
Great.
actually a very apt question. Now, Josh, I'm going to let you guess first on this
All
one.
right, the hardest one, I get to go first. All right. That card is more popular than both of the cards we've talked about before. I think
I can confirm that with the percentages. Yes, it is.
that is I feel like a no-brainer. I'm just questioning how many decks, like, because Fire King does not really make that card. Ubel does not really make that card. So I'm sure it's lower than what it has been at its peak.
Centurion definitely makes that card.
Centurion definitely makes that card. I'm gonna hit you with a 49.9.
Oh no.
Okay, not a bad guess. Ibriz?
I use it in for Noble Knights. I use it in Fortune Lady. I don't use it in Dynamorphia.
66% for
66.
Ibris.
I use it in my Dino deck.
So thinking about it though, this is difficult.
Oh, yes.
I think it's still pretty high just because it is very easily accessible for a lot of different decks, especially when you consider that the majority of the disruptions from the hand are in fact tuners. I'd say 57%.
Now, you'll remember at the top of the show, or at the top of this segment, rather, I did go aim lower with your numbers, but you've chosen to throw that to the wind and not do that. It'll come back to bite you, but I can't say I didn't warn you. Finally,
Okay.
Basti.
Quick and easy. 43.2.
That means the closest there was Basti, because the answer is 36.9, so just over. So you should have gone with your logic for the last card, mate. About a third
Thank
of
you.
people. That would have been helpful. So about just over a third of people are using that. A third of all decks in Master Duel, which I think is very interesting. So next, our penultimate card. I've been told off for saying penultimate by people, because apparently not everyone knows what it means. It means second last. Basal Magnum.
As a Dragon Link duelist,
I go first again.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh,
Me
yeah.
thrown in the water again. All right. Oh, that's tough. If you asked me whether that card is more popular than Baron de Fleur, I couldn't even tell you. I think it's probably a little bit lower. But not by
Centurion
much.
again loves this card.
I love this card, but it's probably a little bit lower than Baron de Fleur. I'll say 27.1.
27.1. Okay, 27.1. Basti.
Magnum is insanely popular, honestly. It has been, Centurion has been so popular on the rating duels and everywhere on ladder basically, so I think I'll go a little higher, honestly. Magnum was everywhere. I'll go 29.7.
And finally, Ibriz.
I will go for 36.5.
You're all way too high. It's all 19.5%, so a little lower, but still quite interesting. So
Similar usage rate as the Underworld Goddess.
yes, 0.5% more, Ibriz. Good memory. So now we come to the last question. I'm going to give you guys a clue with this one, because we always ask the same one every time. What is the percentage usage of Max C? And I will tell you, it's over 90%. So keep your guesses in there. I want the closest with the decimal place. Okay? Who am I going to start? Ibris, you start this time.
93.5.
Now, we have had somewhere in the 94 and 93% ranges in previous shows, so I'm wondering
I think
where
we've had like every range between 90 and 100 in the previous
fluctuates,
shows.
but it's always over 90%.
Yeah.
So say it was going
93.5.
93.5. Josh?
94.2.
Okay. And finally, Basti.
I'll go lower because I didn't use it a lot last month, so I'll go 92.4.
Oh, I can tell you the closest is Basti. It was 91.3.
91.
Wow.
Going down.
91.3%. So it is going down incrementally because we have had, I'm fairly sure on the 90, it went from 93.4 to like 94.1 or something during a couple of the shows. And now it seems to be teetering off a little bit, but maybe it'll come back and go up to 99% or something. So interesting to play this game, but well done everyone. Nobody got any correct answers, but some of you got close. And frankly, it's the taking part and having fun that counts. Now, speaking of taking part and having fun, it's time to see what we're looking at in our selection pack. So let's take a look at a cheeky trailer. That's right, Outlaws from the Inferno is coming this month in Master Duel. Now, Ibris, tell us a little bit about this pack.
So Outlaws from the Inferno brings so many cool things. The most prominent of which is directly behind us, of course, the Tenpai Dragons now coming to Master Duel. This iconic battle phased focused strategy, just super, super powerful, very explosive, hence the Inferno in the title. The Outlaws part probably attributed to the Goblin Bikers that you'll also find in here, alongside the Ritual Beasts.
So quite an interesting, diverse use. I mean, Tenpai we know right now is still very popular in things like the TCG. So talk to us a bit, guys, about what you think about Tenpai now coming to Master Duel.
Tenpai is going to be a very, very strong deck, and it's going to be very interesting to see how it fares in an environment where it's just like you play one game at a time in Master Duel, right? You don't have the sort of best of three whole match where you will know what your opponent is playing at some point. And Tenpai obviously is a deck that wants to go second. So like in a best of three scenario, you can just send them first after you've lost the game to them. It's not something you can do in Master Duel because you always go blind into each and every game. So that's going to be an interesting factor in Tenpai's performance, honestly. And it's probably going to end up in a lot of Tenpais just queuing into each other and like sending each other first.
You go first, yeah.
Yeah.
Basti, what are your thoughts on
No,
it?
it's going to have a massive impact, I'm pretty sure. It's going to be definitely immediately jump to the top of the rated leaderboards. I'm very, very sure we're going to see it probably with multiple people playing it in the next month, top leaderboard, top 10 pretty much. And I will probably play it myself as well, to be honest. And it seems very good. And I think, like, now that you say we don't have any opportunities to maybe side deck or anything, that's going to mean probably that we're going to include very powerful going first cards into a lot of the other decks. So maybe, for example, we're going to see some dimensional barrier or something like that in the main decks of people that are not Tenpai players, because they will go first even more so. So I could see that development for sure.
So you think this deck will be format defining in
Yes.
terms of other decks building around it specifically?
100%.
That's really interesting. But can you tell me more about Sangenpai Transcendent Dragon itself as a card?
Yeah, it's pretty much the decisive card of the entire deck, because it does, when it is summoned, not only allow all of the opponent's monsters to go into the attack position, so you can attack over them more easily, but also, and probably more importantly, when this card is on the field, your opponent is not allowed to use any effects in the battle phase. Meaning, when you get that monster out in the main phase already, and then head into the battle phase, Sangen Kaiman, for example, to summon out another Tenpai monster from the deck, cannot be stopped. Your opponent cannot use any flip effects, any destroyed by battle effects, and therefore when that card is on the field before the battle phase, there's not much you can do about it anyways. And when it comes to the field in the battle phase, same thing, kind. It's going to be really, really good.
Yeah.
Very lethal. That's why it's
Yes.
looming over us, behind us on our backdrop today. But that's us talking about the Tenpai stuff, and I know that something that we've seen a couple of times in some top cuts in things like TCG is Ritual Beasts. We saw it, for instance, over YCS Lille. So what do we think about Ritual Beasts also making its way into Master Duel?
I think Ritual Beast is also going to be a very interesting strategy. The deck is definitely very powerful, and it's going to make great use of cards like Arch Nemesis Protoss, which is a card that is very powerful when summoned, and the deck can actually facilitate calling fire on the first turn with that card, which is not only good against like Snake Eyes and Fire Kings, but also against the upcoming Tenpai strategy. So I think with that card being in Master Duel as well, Ritual Beast is definitely viable.
Yeah, I believe it's also one of the strategies that plays best around Dimensional Shifter. And thereby, again, we mentioned how good Telements was at utilizing the graveyard. You don't get a graveyard to utilize when having to deal with Ritual
You can even
Beast.
use it yourself, to be honest. And then one additional thing, Ubel right now, absolutely on top of the competition. And that ulti raratory that we're showing here actually has that permanent effect that your opponent cannot tribute monsters. Guess what? That means they cannot activate the effect of Phantom of Ubel, nor Samsara Lotus. Therefore, a lot of their deck just doesn't do that much anymore when that card is on the field. So I think Ritual Beast is definitely going to hinder Ubel from performing so dominantly as it did before.
Wow, so quite an impactful pack, actually, this selection pack. So Outlaws from the Inferno, make sure you guys grab that in the stores so that you guys can get on board Ritual Beasts and Tenpai and really start being a part of that shifting format and meta that we're going to be having. Now, speaking of meta, God, I'm good at these segues, Ibris. I'm on fire today. We have some exciting replays to show you, don't we, Ibris?
Yes, indeed we do. Of course, we alluded to the fact that the Duelist Cup was the pinnacle of competition, but throughout the year, since I believe July, we've had the Rating Duel feature at the top of the ranked format. Now, that will showcase the best duelists in the world, and we've actually been able to grab a couple of replays from that we can have our best analysts in the world take a good look at.
Absolutely. So we're going to roll into the first one, and we're going to have our analysts take a look at it.
All right, so what have you picked out for us?
Oh, we'll see.
It's got to be a runic match, right? We have Josh in the
Just
booth,
for
so
Josh
it has
here.
to be a runic
Have these
match.
been picked with the guests in mind?
Ooh, no, we see Ubel right there. I mean, so far not really a Ubel card yet, but I think that's where we're going to get. Ooh.
After the Forbidden Limited list, this is all of the opening of the Spirit Gates in the deck. In the
That
hand.
is true, yeah.
Well,
Yeah. And then we have Voiceless Voice on the upper hand.
Another very popular deck doing the recent Duelist Cup that we haven't mentioned earlier. Voiceless Voice has also been performing well.
Yeah.
I believe this would have been from the August time with the availability of the Voiceless Voice cards.
Yeah.
And of course, Ubel being fairly recent from July.
Yeah.
Sure. And we do go ahead and we have access to the Diviner of the Herald, and that is going to be used as ritual material for that Skull Guardian, and therefore also will be able to use its graveyard effect as it was tributed there. And yeah, the lower player Nazem, he can use his Maxi here, but the crucial part about Maxi against the Voices Voice deck is that it's not that great against it. We already special summoned once now. We do now a second time, but we can pretty much stop there because we already have our Skull Guardian on the field.
Can you tell me more about Odd Eye's Pendulum Graph Dragon?
It's a card that not every Voiceless Voice player is choosing to include in their deck, but it adds a new dimension to the deck's end board if you do include it and you are able to summon it. Obviously, you're always going to prioritize, as we're seeing here, the Skull Guardian. That's always the one you definitely want to have on the field. But if you just end up opening a lot of Voiceless Voice cards, you can also put up that Pendulum Graph Dragon, which adds a spell negate to your board, which is obviously very welcome in any game.
I hope you guys are all paying attention to some of those usage percentages that keep popping up, because next time those are going to come up, and one of you might get a decimal place right.
I have the decimals all saved in my head.
Definitely. And we saw there was also Apkalone, El Shaddai Apkalone being sent to the graveyard through the effect of Maximus, but I think the search effect of it was negated.
So
we're
the
not going to
search
see
was
Schism.
negated, but it also allowed the Garura, the Wings of Resonant Life, to resolve for the draw.
Yeah. And we're seeing the Ubel deck here with an unfortunate pairing of 2 openings and 2 Nightmare Pains in their hand. So they're
It
not
happens.
they don't have access to as many different plays this turn as they would have hoped.
Hey, did we just draw this Shadow Schism anyways? It almost feels like it. One Garura draw maybe still brought it to us. Right,
It does
using the
look like it.
Apkalone, Winda, there it is. That's of course as per usual, meaning that the opponent can only special summon one more monster now for the rest of his turn. And yeah, he's not even going to do that because he already did one special summon, I believe. So that's the turn of the Ubel player here.
And Voice's Voice is a deck that punishes really well if you don't pick their board apart, because like you can see, like that Skull Guardian is already there with 4100. It's not going to be hard to add another one to that, which is a massive amount of damage.
Oh, this is absolutely huge field domination there from Voiceless Voice. But does that mean it's necessarily over, Ibriz?
Probably, given the amount of disruption. Just
You always got to factor in that Spirit of Ubel against the Ubel deck, because they can summon that out in the battle phase.
yeah.
Exactly.
So that's going to be a little tricky here, because what's going to end up happening, they do have the Skull Guardian to potentially negate it, but that is going to negate and destroy it, which then lets it activate to summon out the classic Ubel from the deck. So we're going to see how they handle it. They do negate it.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting because we could have just decided to let it summon out, and that would have meant they can't summon out another copy. But then we can't really
They both
attack
can't be,
through
they
it,
can't be
right?
destroyed by battle, and they can't be,
Oh, they're attacking into it. That was 4,100 points of damage there all of a sudden.
they kept attacking, and they did not factor that in. They knew about that in hand, and they still ran into it without a decisive plan for it.
Oh, and now the Nightmare Pain that is in our hand might actually come in handy because
Yeah.
that Skull Guardian, and we have to attack with Skull Guardian basically. It's so big that just one attack of the Ubel monster into it could seal the deal here.
That is one of the very interesting dynamics in this particular matchup, because the Skull Guardian is so big, which is normally a great thing for your deck. Against Ubel, you would like it to be just a little bit smaller.
Oh wait, we tried to negate Nightmare Pain. We tried to negate the activation, I believe, and therefore it still was stuck on the field, and we could just use the effect afterwards.
Unchained Soul Lord of Yama there to bring back the Spirit
Oh,
of
attacking
Ubel.
into the Skull Guardian, that's it.
Wow, you were so confident about how that massive field from Voiceless Voice was probably going to be the loss there.
Probably, but then look, we're seeing the full strength of the Ubel deck.
Quite right, we certainly are.
Yeah,
Goodness
and
me.
also the importance of knowing the cards that you're going up against and what they could have in their hand.
I like how you're making direct eye contact with me while saying this.
Why?
Well, it's not the only replay that we've got, actually, because we have even more. We have one more from that similar level, highest level of play in Master Duel. So we're going to jump into that, and our analysts can take another look at this.
I'd say that was a fairly enjoyable first one.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
It had a nice twist at the end, because I'm not going to lie, I thought Voiceless Voice was going to take it as well.
Surely. Okay, so what do we have here? Ooh, Telements. All
There we
beloved
go.
and still with Pearl
seeing the
Rhino.
Pearl Rhino in their
R.I.P.
hand.
Pearl Rhino.
Oh, and we do have
Time?
unexpected dive for the
Yeah.
Loci.
All right, I'm zoning out.
The favorite plant deck of Mr. Joshua Schmidt on display here.
Now, we've seen this do very well in TCG lately, so the fact that it's still dominating the top of Master Duel as well makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of brings problems for Telements decks, because Telements usually don't include that many interaction on the opponent's turn, because they just rely on cards like Forbidden Droplet and so on and so forth. But the question is whether that Forbidden Droplet is going to be enough for like a full plants field. So we gotta see.
The answer is probably no.
We gotta see.
An uninterrupted plant combo puts up a very impressive board if it's being piloted well, which I'm not going to be the judge of here. But I've definitely seen some plant players put up some very, very impressive boards with just that unseeming vanilla monster, the Sunseed Genius Loci.
Yeah, probably still to this day the most powerful normal monster in the game.
Here's one of the key moments in the plant combo where you get to add the Therion King Regulus to your hand,
Yep.
which is going to add a layer of protection to whatever you're doing from this point on.
Indeed. I mean, one thing that could have been possible to interact on your opponent's turn would have been Telements Kashtira, using its effect to banish another Telements card out of the hand, and to then maybe rely on cards being sent from the top of the deck to your graveyard, being ways to fusion summon on your opponent's turn. But there is no other Telements or Kashtira card in their hand, so that wasn't an opportunity for them here.
Oh, we're going for a Dance Field, okay.
And
Just choosing it for the level modulation to turn the Petal and the Lone Fire Blossom into level 4s.
Strana it is.
Reno's going to add back a plant monster or a Rika card from the graveyard back to the hand, and when it's tributed later, it's going to summon out a bigger Rika monster from the extra deck.
Yeah, you saw that win percentage. When Strana comes to the field, 78% of the time, plant players are winning. That's a pretty high percentage, to be honest.
Almost as impressive as Emperor Charles the Great.
Yeah, there are certain cards where you just know when a deck gets that far, it's looking good.
For sure. And now we see that the new Aroma cards are perfectly being used as well now by Curry. It is Aroma Blend going to be activating the Humid Winds from the deck.
Yeah, I think they just built this deck by filtering for plants,
Yeah, probably.
and then they're done. They just everything goes in. That's why it's typically a 60-card deck as well.
True. Then just can't stop. There's now the Peritone, also a plant, of course.
Yep.
And the Rika Concon.
Tell me more about what the recent Ragnarika cards do for this deck.
I think they only play a small part of it, actually. I think it's just the Ragnarika Evil Seed alongside the Ragnarika Bloom, I think is the name.
Yeah.
Which just, I don't think we're going to see it in this, like, quote-unquote standard Lokai combo that they're performing right here. I think it just gives you more ways to perform the combos with different combinations of cards in your opening hand.
Yeah, it's just another way of starting.
Oh,
but
actually,
we are
there it
searching
is.
it here.
See,
Okay.
I'm telling you, I'm not going to judge the quality of this plant combo.
I mean, it seems like decent follow-up as well, so maybe we're just going to keep it for the next turn in case there is another turn.
Oh yeah, actually that's true. Yeah, they're not going to. Okay.
And then we pass it over. Bangalancer at Periton. And we, immediately going to use the effect of Humid Winds here.
And so the Tearlament player here by no means has a bad hand. They definitely have a lot of tools to potentially play into this field. The problem or the great thing about the plant deck is that it ends on interruptions in all kinds of different forms. It's not as simple as using a Forbidden Droplet to just negate all of the monsters, because they do have like interaction from the graveyard, as we see the Rika Princess here. They have the Con to tribute an opponent's monster. They have a trap card that they search. So it's not just like as simple as activating a Forbidden Droplet and calling it a day.
Yeah. But interestingly enough, we did let our opponent make a couple of moves. So we might still end up getting enough cards here to send with the Forbidden Droplet, potentially. There it is.
Some, especially they have the Destruder, which is a good send even.
Yeah. We did decide to negate the effect of Shaddoll Beast, which you could argue that it's not that powerful because it's just a card drawn from your deck. Still, let's see whether it's enough. We get to Fusion Summon now.
Sharon resolves and we get Hitkalos.
I mean, Hitkalos is our way to victory, kind of. And the PRhino still on the field. I said it earlier. Don't disregard the second effect of PRhino, being able to destroy cards on the field consistently as well. We have to negate that now.
Hyperiton is going to stop that, yeah. So we're basically, and this is the point where a lot depends on what the Tearlament deck can get off of these 5 cards that the Kikos is going to send to the graveyard, and the 3 cards that the Tearlament Cashier already used its effect.
Yeah, we did get the Rhino Heart. That gets things going once more.
I think I saw a Fairy Tail Snow in there as well, so I think they are...
Could be anyone's game at this point
At
still.
this point, yes. Honestly, it could be.
Okay, linking off the Garura is going to give us another card. And what are we going into? Oh, just SP Little Knight.
Just SP Little Knight.
Probably a sign.
Just one of the best extra deck monsters they have.
Okay, we're making sure that Rika Sheet is now being used. So that should be the last interruption that the plant player can provide here. But please note, we already tributed from our opponent by using the effect of Rika Princess, meaning that Rika Sheet now had to attribute one of her own cards to activate. Therefore, we could just respond with the SP Little Knight and save our monsters, kinda.
Ooh, Deep Sea Prima Donna. That's another tuner. You think they got? Do you think they got a little psychic?
Psychic End Punisher.
One of my favorite cards. I love using this card in my Punk deck. Is it going to be?
They might have
I
it.
use it in Dynamorphia. Ash Blossom plus the 2 level 4s.
I hate all of you
Oh my,
because
oh my.
this card ruins my games when it comes on the field. I hate
there
it.
it is.
Yes,
There
there
Oh
it is.
God.
That's beautiful display of this deck.
Is it going to be big enough though? At the moment, it'll gain 3,800.
Hopefully. Oh, we doubled it from
Tugaris as
2 Garus,
well.
right?
It's going to be good enough, yeah.
Holy, how big is it? Oh, we lose more life points even, of course.
It's going to be big. It's big.
11,800 for the final
Wow.
punch there.
What a spectacular finish on that replay. This is why we're watching some of the top level Master Duel playing going on.
Yeah, really exciting games there. Yeah, really great job from all the players involved. Those were super entertaining, and yeah, I think our analysts had equally as much fun as we did.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how with the new cards being released and Tenpai and Ritual Beast coming out, we'll be seeing some of those in those very, very top echelon replays.
Goblin Bikers as well.
Oh, absolutely. That'll be making its way there. Maybe we'll be watching one of those next time. But that is basically most of what we got on the show. However, we do have one more little thing to talk about, and that is Challenger Cups.
Yeah, and Challenger Cup, of course, returning for the autumn season now. Unchained Soul, Lord of Yama, gracing your screens. Really excited to see that. We have a really special trailer to show you, and of course we have two of our
Wonderful
prominent
hosts of these.
Yeah.
So guys, looking forward to the next season very much. Let's take a look at this trailer. There we go. So make sure you guys do sign up to those Challenger Cups. Maybe you'll be part of one of these two Challenger Cups in that coming season, but it's always an exciting thing for the community to take part in. But that is going to be it for this episode of this month. But actually, I've had a cracking episode this time. Ibris, what have you felt?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, thank you. I'm a bit sad we didn't get to ask Josh about Emre's record on day one of WCS with the Flanderies. Really coming in clutch there. But I'm sure we have a lot more questions for you for next time.
You snuck it in at the end, though. Just to be
Lampy
sure.
as well. Fantastic guest.
Yeah, guys.
Really love speaking with both of you.
Thank
super
you.
knowledgeable, super fun to talk to. And yeah, we really hope to see more of you.
Yeah, and we really enjoyed you guys giving us your expert analysis on those replays as well. And we look forward to seeing how your Challenger Cups go as well. And obviously, we'll be keeping an eye on everything that you guys do up to now. But thank you very much, all of you guys who have watched at home for this month's episode. And I guess from Ibris and I, we'll see you guys next month for this month in Master Duel.